Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. And welcome to this program. Tonight, we are going to start this discussion with the item that is on the screen. SADC shuts door to Zimb fresh poll calls. There's been a number of people, particularly from the media, social media, that's sympathetic to the opposition, claiming that SADC was preparing for fresh elections in June. And this has carried on since last year. This has been a theme that I think encouraged by the opposition, that there will be fresh elections. To be quite honest, since the elections themselves, the 2023 elections, when SADC election observers and the AU election observers condemned the election process as flawed, it was shocking, to say the least, that CCC officials who had managed to win some seats in those flawed elections defied SADC and went on to accept their gravy train seats. That act alone had shut the door to any meaningful elections. If Zimbabweans themselves are happy with the election, SADC would find it very difficult to say the elections were not free, fair, and credible and deny Zanu PF legitimacy. So, by accepting the gravy train seats, the Zanu PF guys had shot themselves. The CCC guys had shot themselves in the foot, and the nation with it. And then what followed next was all these recall of CCC MPs, a circus that is carried on to this day. For SADC to still be calling for fresh elections under those circumstances was laughable. Here is the opposition imploding, and SADC thinks that it can hold fresh elections under those situations. In which what? Zanu PF alone is the viable party contesting those elections? What is the point? So it has been really meaningless. I'd like to welcome Benjamin. Benjamin, what do you think?
Thank you for having me, and good day to all our viewers. Well, I can't say I'm surprised to read such a headline, given the situation that is currently, unfolding in Zimbabwe, where you find out that the opposition is now in a mess. Let's say, where there's no head or tails, or who is leadership, or who is doing what, or who holds what key position in it. So it's not surprising. And yes, I agree with you. After that SADC, first of all, let's not. I would like to start just before the elections. I truly believe we should not have even held elections in the first place without any reforms that were implemented. It was just going to be as business as usual, and guess what? It was business as usual. Then we find out that SADC this time around came and gave us another good opportunity, one after the one that we messed up during the GNU. They gave us a good opportunity with their SADC report, and it was not only backed, by just SADC, but the AU as well, the European Union. They called the election as it is, a shambles. But then, funny enough, the opposition decided to say, no, as far as the parliamentary, elections are concerned, we did okay. Those were okay. We are going to take up our seats because it was our hard-earned money that we used to do all the campaigning, and they took up those seats, hence giving legitimacy to the process. So now we cannot be surprised to see SADC has just gone quiet about the whole thing, or it's now business as usual for SADC, because we put ourselves in such a position. We refused help again. And why I'm saying again is because in 2000, before the 2013 elections, SADC won MDC. And when we talk of MDC, it's still the same triple C, because most of the members that were present in 2000 in the GNU are still the same members that were in triple C. They refused to listen that do not enter into these here elections in 2013 because Zanu PF will rig the elections, and hence Zanu PF did rig the elections, and we are still seeing it today. They are still rigging the elections. So now for us to start blaming SADC, to say SADC has left Zimbabwe to high and dry, and it's a dark day, we caused the darkness by taking up those seats and giving credibility and legitimacy to a process that was already, you know, blacklisted as that it did not meet any expectations. So it's quite saddening that people are realizing that SADC could not have done anything other than, accept what the opposition had selected. So for this stance, what SADC has done, I don't blame them. I blame the opposition. Greed took over as usual, and hence here we are.
Well, I totally agree with you there, Benjamin. To be quite honest, I think SADC would have been doing us a great disservice if they were to pretend that having fresh elections would make any meaningful change in Zimbabwe politics. Holding fresh elections with the opposition, Triple C, imploding. As we have seen with the by-elections, Zanu PF has been winning most of the seats in the by-elections, which had been won by the opposition in the August elections. So if we were to have a national election under these conditions, I think it is clear that Zanu PF, without having to resort to any outrageous rigging measures, would have a clean sweep. And so therefore then it would have just given Zanu PF legitimacy because it had created the situation where the opposition is imploding. So I think it would have been totally meaningless, to be quite honest. But let's go to this video here, Benjamin. It's by Professor Ibo Mandaza, and he's talking about the Zimbabwe political crisis. And I think some of the issues that he raises there are very pertinent, and I think people should pay attention to these issues. Let's just listen to a bit and then we can discuss it.
militarization of the state that we have referred to, we have a situation where Zanu PF and the state have been able to exercise a level of patronage, demonstrated as it has in the last few months, to the extent to which MPs were paid 40,000 each, the judiciary 400,000 each, the judges, and the extent to which right now the CCC has been confronted with the force of patronage. The scale of recalls, never had anything like that in our lives. Recalls, by-elections, almost complete annihilation of the opposition. And so while we discuss the nature and content of our opposition, we need to bear in mind that the question is not so much about the opposition, but about the nature of the state and the Zanu PF state conflation, and the extent to which, as I said earlier, this state party conflation is intolerant of the opposition. It treats the opposition as an enemy to be vanquished. And what we have right now is almost a near vanquishing of the entire opposition. So on that note, I want to introduce my panelists. We have Hopeful Chingono, Blessed Mshlanga, two prominent journalists. We've chosen them for this session because they have been the most prominent in terms of the interaction with our politics.
Benjamin, I thought I'll give you an opportunity to comment on that one before we hear the panelists.
Oh, thank you. So I would say the political environment in Zimbabwe is plain outright toxic. Not because Zanu PF is making it toxic alone, but both Zanu PF and the opposition are playing a very pivotal role in the toxicity of the political environment. They are both corrupt and incompetent. They will not be the ones that will lead us out of this mess. I know it may not be popular amongst a lot of people, but that is the truth. Why am I saying this? There he was speaking about when, a few months before Parliament was dissolved, when MPs were getting given 40,000. Everybody, including the CCC MPs, were lining up, pushing each other and shoving each other to get these monies. And yet, in a clear conscience, you should know that, you know what, you're not entitled to this money, because just a few days later, you are going to be out of a job. But guess what? Zanu PF, in their clever and their cunning way, they gave them 40, and they went and gave the big guns, the ones that are supposed to be running the whole show after, they gave them 400,000. They gave the judges to close their mouths so that they will be able to deal with the circus, right? So in the end, you find out that who lost? It is you and I. And here we are now in the mess once again. And I agree with him. It is a very, very toxic environment, but we shouldn't give credit to Zanu PF alone. We should give it to also the opposition, CCC, and everybody that participated in these here rigged elections.
Yeah, but I think I'll just reiterate what you also have said there. And I think the other day we were talking of the same issue, and I think it was Brett who said that the opposition has become Zanu PF Team B in all but name. I think this theme is coming through and through. that this is really indeed the case. The opposition has been discredited to the point where they are utterly useless. The main problem that we are having in Zimbabwe, in my view, is the failure by the electorate to realize that the opposition is corrupt and incompetent, and they will never bring about any meaningful change. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. I'll go on and play the video, and I think there are a number of panelists who raise the same issue. But one of the things I would like to point out from the word go, I've had a chance to listen to it, is that even some of these panelists, they seem to think that Nelson Chamisa and these Triple C friends are the solution. This inability to think outside the box, to think that Zanu PF or Triple C are the solution to Zimbabwe's problem, regardless of the history of failure and incompetence on the two political parties' part, is what is really bothering me personally, and I think seriously is holding back the country. Let's just listen to the video again and hear what Ibo Matasa is saying.
In general, but also with the opposition. They have a store of knowledge about the opposition, and they will help us unpack the causes of the current malaise in the opposition. Anyway, Brighton Mutebuka, a lawyer based in the diaspora, a man who has been very busy on the social media and on X, or former Twitter, and he's one of the most knowledgeable about the goings on in Triple C. To assist us, we have a batch of discussants. We have Julius Maurire, a very serious commentator on the politics in our country. Chennai Ntambesere in the diaspora also has graced our platform a number of times. And Chipode Ndere, a scholar, currently based in Cape Town, but otherwise in the US. And Jackie Sunday of the Xavier Kasikwere connection, so to speak. So I'll begin with Hopewell, and then on to Blessed in Brighton. And then the format I want to follow today is not that to allow our panelists to speak at length, but to interrogate each after a brief statement, try and highlight the main issues that they're trying to bring across. Hopewell, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mandaza. It's quite difficult to speak about Zimbabwean politics to a historian and political scientist of your stature, but I'll try my level best. I think I want to start on the fact that we are all Zimbabweans. There are certain things that take place in our homes, whether it's our personal homes or our political homes, which are called political parties. But when you go into those homes, there is a certain element of Zimbabweanness that you will always see, regardless of whose home it is, whether it's Hopewell's home or Dr. Mandaza's home, or whether it's Zanu PF or Triple C or MDC. You see these things all the time. And so it starts with how we elect our leaders or how we select our leaders. In post-colonial history of this country, of Zimbabwe, that element has always been problematic. I mean, I can go back even to the 70s. Professor Mandas has spoken at length in terms of the emergence of people like Robert Mugabe becoming president of Zanu PF in Chimoyi in 1977, and all the way right up to where we are today. So the MDC was a creation, the original MDC was a creation that came about because there was a political crisis that was manifesting itself through economics. We know that the dollar had crashed post 1997. We had the DRC war, and then we were faced with an imminent land reform, land seizures that took place, which became violent. And that is how the MDC came into being, because it was meant to address the economic crisis that was taking place in Zimbabwe at that time. So one would argue that the MDC, or the opposition in Zimbabwe, has gotten a lot of votes, not on the basis of ideology or anything else, but on the basis of the suffering of the people. People are saying they want the economic situation addressed. It seems someone has got their mic on. So that is how it came into being. And Morgan Tsvangirai led the MDC, wildly popular at the time. And I think it was 2002 when we had a situation where the military pronounced itself for the first time in words by saying that they will not salute anyone who doesn't have a liberation history. And of course, we all know that they were referring to Morgan Tsvangirai. The military was a factor in the sense that Zanu PF is a political party which had a military. When we came into our independence, Zanu PF came with its military, ZAPU came with its military, Zipra and Zanu, Zanla, and the Rhodesians had their own army. These three armies were put together, and we ended up with a military that was more like a political commissar for a political party, because the commanders of that military were also sitting in the Politburo, from Rex Nongo right up to where we are, where the president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, attempted to bring in the commander of the military, General Sibanda. And so with this, it became a well-pronounced fight between the establishment and the opposition. And the establishment, of course, had state institutions to use. It has a military it had the military to use. We remember how the judiciary was dismantled and so forth. And the first test for the opposition was in 2005, because the opposition was meant to address the democratic deficit that was in Zimbabwe. And this was an opportunity, I guess, for the opposition to show that they were really democratic. I must say this before I get into the 2005 split, that Zimbabweans by nature, although they don't want to accept it, they follow individuals and personalities and not ideas and ideology. So you saw that well pronounced in 2005, where there was a constitution in black and white, which stated that if you don't win a vote, the majority goes. And Morgan Tsvangirai refused to accept the majority position in regards to the senatorial elections. And that's when we saw the first split. And democracy suffered. And Zanu PF took advantage of this, because it became difficult to talk about constitutionalism when you are not practicing constitutionalism in your own political party. But because, as I said earlier, the opposition came into being because of a political crisis manifesting itself through economics, the citizens were willing to overlook that. And those issues have never been primary or central to.
Benjamin, I would like to stop there for a minute and discuss this, the 2 points that Wopo has brought up here. We must remember here that the main, even the topic that Professor Mandaza was highlighting was the Zimbabwe crisis, political crisis, and how we're going to move on. He has raised two issues, the military and the individual versus ideology. I don't know whether you want to comment on the issue of the military. How did the military get us, or did they play any role at all in getting us into this mess, in your view?
Yes, I believe the military has played a significant role in politics, especially in Zimbabwe, because I think, you know, they control, like, for example, they swore allegiance to Zanu PF and said they would never, under any circumstances, you know,
I don't know what has happened there, Ben. I can't hear you. But my quick response to that one is that I think this is
yes,
the
but
issue of the
that
military.
they should not, that they should not give us an excuse. I would basically like to draw attention to the part where he spoke of our people, how they choose individuals that will represent them for the future. And in this case, when we are choosing a presidential candidate
Sorry,
that will take us
before you
through.
go on to hello, Benjamin. Before you go on to the next one,
Yes.
I just wanted to answer the issue of the military. As much as
Okay.
the military, for instance, said they will never support, they will never salute somebody with no military credential, we must understand that they were doing it under the coercion of Zanu PF. That line would have only come from the Zanu PF spin doctors and propagandists. And if we were to go fast track to the GNU itself, when the opposition had the opportunity to implement the democratic reforms, which would have reformed the police, SEC, the judiciary, all the institutions of society. One has got to say the army had absolutely no role to play. They did not stop the opposition implementing those reforms, to break up the link between Zanu PF and the military. So I think this is becoming a serious problem with Zimbabwe. We want to make a mountain out of a molehill. The military, as much as they have got the allegiance to Zanu PF, the military itself has never really stopped reforms and stopping the opposition implementing reforms which would have stopped Zanu PF rigging the elections. I think that point must be made, and must be made very clear. Then we can now move on to the next point, this issue of individual versus ideology. Ben. Hello? Okay, I don't know what is happening with Ben there. Your mic is muted. My comment on that one is that yes, I agree with Hopewell that in Zimbabwe, our politics have been more the politics of individuals instead of ideas. But that is at the heart of our problem. We really have failed to elevate our political discourse above the trivial matters of individuals and rather listen to what the individual is saying and judge them on the basis of the quality of their contribution. And this has been at the heart of our politics and still remains at the heart of our politics. We really have a problem in that regard. And as long as that problem remains, that we do not understand issues at stake, we are always invariably going to make decisions on the basis of, superficial knowledge on the issue. And as an electorate, that is fundamentally a serious problem, because democracy requires an electorate that is well informed and then is diligent in holding those in positions of power to account. That is at the heart of it. So on that point, I totally agree with Hopewell there, that our politics of individual versus ideology has always been, we go with the individual. We don't listen to ideology. That is a weakness, a serious weakness. No society, no political party can ever achieve anything when the membership are so naive, ignorant, and gullible that they only look at the superficial issues. I think you're back now, Ben. Do you want to comment on that issue, the ideology versus individual?
Oh, yeah, thank you. My connection was acting up. So, yeah, I would say I do agree with him. The main problem is I think it's us as a people. What are we looking for in a leader, and how deep or how much are we going to scrutinize before we accept a certain individual, to give him such a high esteemed office? I think we are not asking the right questions, or we are not scrutinizing enough. We are so desperate. We are taking the first individual that comes. Someone gave an example and said, if you were to put Zanu PF on one side and put a donkey on the other and ask people to vote, they would probably vote for the donkey. So this is how bad it is in Zimbabwe. People are so tired, but within our tiredness, are we still stopping, just for a moment to think back, to find out, are we not going to be putting in the same problem that we are trying to put back, that we are trying to get rid of? This is where I find we are not being diligent enough. We are shooting ourselves in the foot because we are thinking with our stomachs instead of with our heads. We just want anything but Zanu PF. And I think we are bound to make another grave mistake if we were to continue, in this manner. So I think we got to change our perspective of thinking. Let's find out what this person here is got to offer. Secondly, what has he done in the previous, since he has offered? A lot of promises have been made by the CCC, but none have been delivered. Just like Zanu PF, they've promised a lot and nothing has been delivered. So unless we get our questions and our thinking caps on, we're bound to make the same mistake.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. I think we have already got to 35 minutes now. I wanted to limit it to 30 minutes. So instead of carrying on with this discussion, I think we will just stop there. And tomorrow, I really would like to follow up on some of the things that this group, that Professor Ibo Mandaza put together in this panel discussion, because they raised a number of pertinent issues that I think we must address. But we'll have to leave that one for another day. So, Benjamin, would you like to give your closing remarks?
Thank you. So yeah, today we have had two topics, but to bring it down into one, or to just try and combine it, I personally think that it is us as individuals, and I've always said this, I think it is up to us as a people of Zimbabwe, to do our own research, to find out, to think for ourselves, not to be told what to do or wait on somebody to tell us what to do, but to think for ourselves, to reason for ourselves when we are looking for the best way forward. I know we are tired of Zanu PF and the rigging, the looting, and the poverty and the hunger, but we still have to think about tomorrow. Otherwise, we will make the very same mistake that we did when we put Mugabe in. Is the same mistake that we will do for future leaders, whether it be in CCC or in Zanu PF again. We have to stop. And we made the mistake, unless I forget, we made the mistake by also celebrating when we put Mnangagwa in. That's how these mistakes keep showing up. So it's now a track record that we are not doing right for ourselves, yet alone these leaders doing it right by us. So let's stop back and think for ourselves and see what these leaders are actually standing for and are willing to do for us before we elect them and put them in these high esteemed offices. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. My closing remark would be, tomorrow we would like to follow up on this discussion initiated by Professor Ibo Mandaza. And in it, they carry on, one of the themes that carries through is this issue of CCC is the best foot forward for the country. In a way, this undermines, although the Hopewell there did try to emphasize this issue of Zimbabweans have got this fourth level where they go for individuals instead of ideas. I think it is a serious problem. And I think by saying that CCC are the best foot forward, it shows that weakness being repeated over and over again. And what is disappointing here is these are the people who are supposed to be the opinion makers, and they are making the same mistake. And that is why I think we need to really interrogate people like that, so that this point is clarified. But we'll have to leave that one for tomorrow. We'll have the same discussion, carry on from where we left off. So we'll meet, if you can join us tomorrow, 7 o'clock UK time. Thank you very much again, Benjamin, and good night, everybody.
Thank you for having me, and good night.